Welcome back. Today we're going to be working on the home page. So we're going to start by implementing the design for the food categories. Alright, so open up your project and head over to the custom views. The first thing we're going to do is to create a CollectionViewCells folder. So this is where we're going to have all of our CollectionView cells. And then we're going to create one more, and we're going to call this category view cell. Category collection view cell. Alright, sweet. Now hold down Command N and select Cocoapods class because we want to create the, so make sure you have subclass of UI collection view cell, and we're going to call this category. Sweet. And now we're going to include a nib and next. Awesome. So create. Great, so now we have the interface for our collection view cell, and the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to add a UI view that's pretty much going to contain all of our designs. So we're going to add constraints to 0, 0, 0, 0, and great. So now we're going to add a UI image. So click and drag that over here, and this is going to have a width of 40. Height of 40, and we're going to add constraint 8, 8, and 8. Awesome. So let's go ahead and modify this a little bit. Alright, looks good. So the next thing we're going to do, I'm going to add a width to this guy. This is going to have a width of 150, and the height 56 is okay. I'm going to move this. Awesome. So next we're going to have a label. And this is going to center to our image view. So hold down Control, click and drag like that, center vertically. And this is going to have constraints of 8 and 8. Great. So we're going to reduce the text size to say like 13 looks good. Alright, so this is it for our collection view cell. Next we're going to actually create a reference to our collection view cell right here. So let's get rid of this. And we're going to start with the image view, and we're going to call this category image view. And secondly, we're going to have for our name or title, so we can call this title or category title label. Awesome. Now whenever I'm dealing with something like this, I always like to have a setup function. So I'm going to create a function called setup, and this function is going to actually take in an argument called category, and this is going to be of type, we can call this dish category. Okay, so this doesn't exist yet, so let's actually go ahead and create that. So we're going to head over to our models and create a new one. This is going to be a Swift file, and we're going to call this dish category like that. Create, and this is going to be a struct that has three attributes rather. So all of them are of type string. So I'm just going to go ahead and say ID and name and image. Alright, so you can actually go ahead and break these down into individual lets, so you can add like let name as string, right? But I'm just trying to keep things easy. Okay, so yeah, we have this created. Now we can go back to our collection view cell, and this should be good. Great. Now before we actually go any further, we're going to need a particular library called Kingfisher, and this is going to help us to load images via the URL. Alright, so if you remember from our video on how to use Cocoapods, the first thing we're going to need to do is to create or initialize Cocoapods. Alright, so open up your terminal and make sure you are in your project. So you have to do CD and then go to your particular project. Alright, so I'm currently in my project, so what I want to do is say pod init, and this is going to initialize our pod. So if I do ls, you can see that now we have our pod file. Okay, so let's go ahead and open up the pod file. So I'm going to open this using Xcode. I don't know if that's the default, so So just click Xcode, always open with, and open up. Now right here we're gonna add a pod, and what do we want to install? Kingfisher, just like that. So we can go ahead and close this and open up our terminal again, and this time type pod install. Shoosh. I don't know what I did. So pod install. Awesome, so now we have Kingfisher installed in our project, and now we cannot use our normal project file. So initially we always opened this guy, so now we're going to be opening the workspace because now we have pods installed. So I'm just going to double tap on that, and now we have our workspace open. Great, and if you open up the pods and click here, you can see that we have Kingfisher, right? So in Yummy we're going to go back to our views, custom views, CollectionViewCell, category CollectionView, and right here we're trying to implement the setup. So the first thing I'm going to do is to import Kingfisher. All right, and we're just going to build this so that everything connects. So while that is happening, we're going to go ahead and set the title. So I'm going to say category title label dot text, and this is going to be equal to our category dot name, right? Then next we're gonna have category image view, and this Kingfisher gives us something called KF, right? And this allows us to do set image, and the source is gonna accept a URL, right? And there's something I actually like to do, so let's just use font 11. So I like to have an extension that converts a URL, a string, to a URL. So in our extensions folder, I'm just going to create a new file, and this is going to be a string extension. All right. Now in our string extension, we're just going to say extension of string, and we're going to have a computed property as URL, like that, and this is going to return an optional URL. So right here we're simply saying return URL string of self. Awesome. So by having this, or by doing this, right here what we can say is category dot, I don't know why I'm having issues spelling category, dot image dot as URL. Perfect. So yeah, everything seems good. So the next thing we're going to need to do is to go over to our homepage and use this particular design in the homepage. So let's hold down Command-Shift-O and type Home View Controller. And right here, before we actually get started, we're going to need to set up or connect our delegates. So we have two options. You can set your delegate in the class. You can set it in your storyboard. So I'm just going to head over to the Main.Storyboard, and first thing we're going to do is to create an outlet for our food category. So just open up the assistant editor, and right at the top we're going to hold down Control click and drag this guy over here. So this is going to be called category collection view, just like that. And next I'm going to click at this icon at the top right here and click on delegate, or click drag delegate to this icon over here. So this is basically connecting this guy to self. The alternative, as I said, let's go back to the home view controller. The alternative, as I said, is to do category collection view dot delegate equals self, all right, and data source equals self. Awesome. So the next thing we're going to do over here is we're going to create our data source. So I'm going to have a variable here called categories. I knew I failed it. So categories, good. And this is going to be of type dish category, just like that. And this is going to be an array. So I'm just going to add some text over here, but in the real sense, this is going to be fetched from our backend. All right. So the first thing we're going to do, I'm just going to use init, and I'm going to pass in an ID. It doesn't really matter for now. So this, I'm just going to say African dish. Good. And for the image, I'm just going to use this Pixum API. So https picsum.photos/100 by select 200, I guess. Well, I'm just trying to get a random image, right? You can put whatever URL that you want. This is just for testing purposes. So I'm going to copy this and basically duplicate this. I'm trying to get like 5 of this. So let's copy 2, 3, 4, 5. Awesome. So here, I don't know what's I'm going to African dish 2, African dish 3, dish 4, dish 5, because I don't know the kind of names to use. So right now we have our basically our data store or data source. So it's time to implement the CollectionView extensions or delegate protocols. So we're going to create an extension for the home view controller, which is the way I like to do it. And I'm going to say UI CollectionView delegate first of all, then UI CollectionView data source, just like that. So the first thing we need is the number of items in section, and for this we're going to simply return what's it called? Categories dot count. But well, I'm going to show you something in a bit. The next thing we're going to need is the cell for item at index path, and this is going to be, so let cell be equal to CollectionView dq reusable cell with identifier as, okay, let's force this, and this is going to be of category CollectionViewCell, and finally we're going to return cell. Alright, so now we need to put in the identifier. So let's get back to our CollectionViewCell, and actually this is something I like to do, just create a static constant, and I call this identifier, and I like to make this like this. You could actually just set a string and pass in the name, but what I like to do instead is to have a string and say describing, and then I pass in the name of the class dot self. So this is just going to use the class name as the identifier as well. Alright, so what I'm going to do, since I'm saying that this is our identifier, I need to actually set the reuse identifier over here. So make sure you've selected your CollectionViewCell and click on this icon, I believe the attributes inspector. Alright, and right here we have reuse identifier, so just paste that here so it's the same name as the class. It's very important if you're going to be using the same thing I have over here. Alright, so yeah, now we have that set. Let's head back to our home view controller, and right here we can simply just say the name of the class, the identifier, and for index path we're simply going to have index path over here. So because we have our collection view outside of our collection view cell, we're going to need to register the collection view into the collection view. What did I just say? Because we have our collection view cell created outside of our collection view, we're going to need to manually register that. Alright, so right at the top, just after our view did load, I'm going to create a private function, and I'm going to call this register nibs or xibs, whatever you want to call it. I don't even know if it's nib. Well, or register cells. Let's just call it cells, just to be sure. Now, how do we register cell? We're going to need to specify the name of the collection view we want to register it to. So in our case, category collection view, I'm going to say dot register. And we're going to be using this option nib. So I was actually correct. So we're trying to register a nib, so UI nib. And to create a nib, we're just passing the nib name and the bundle, right? Now for the nib name, you can just paste in the class and use identifier because that's the name of the nib, right? The view. And for the bundle, we can just say nil. And for the reuse identifier, just do that again and say identifier. So you can actually see that this is very helpful to have this as a constant rather than, you know, manually typing in the collection view string like this in multiple places. All right. So yeah, now we have registered this, and I believe we can actually go ahead and run this and see what it looks like. So let's click. Oh no. So I have this function, but I didn't call it. So I'm just going to call register cells, and let's run this one more time. Okay, so yeah, this looks. We have the cell, but it doesn't exactly populate it, and I'm sure you know why. If you look over here, we created the cell and simply returned it. We forgot to set it up. Alright, so we call the setup function, which expects a dish category, so we can get that from our categories and then pass in index path dot row. So just get me the category for this index path. Alright, looking good, looking good. Okay, so first thing we notice here is that this is actually scrolling vertically. We want it to scroll horizontally. So that's the first thing we're going to correct. So let's head over to the Main.Storyboard and make sure that the collection view is selected. And then we're going to go to the attribute inspector, or the, what's it called? I think, yep, attribute inspector. And we're going to change the scroll direction to horizontal flow. And we're going to remove, because I noticed that we had some scroll indicators, so we don't need that. I'm going to remove those, and we're actually going to remove the spacing. I believe there's like minimum spacings and stuff, so let's remove both of these guys, and now let's see what we have. We actually need to put one back. Well, let's see. Alright, so it actually looks pretty good. Yep, it scrolls very well. Nice. So the next thing we're going to do here is we're going to add a shadow to each of these items. Alright, so how do we do that? The first thing we're going to need to do, because we're going to have shadows in multiple views, so I'm going to go over to our custom views and I'm going to create a new view, and this is going to be called CardView. Alright, now in our CardView I'm going to simply create a normal class. Alright, struct, what am I even saying? I'm going to create a class and I'm going to call this CardView, right, like that. Great. So over here I'm going to say class CardView, and this is going to conform to a UI view. And for us to use the UI view, we're going to need to import our UI kit like that. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to override our init. So we're going to have our init frame, and we're going to say super.init, and frame is going to be frame like this, and I'm going to have a what I call a common or initial setup. Alright, so this is going to be a function. I'm going to call this initial setup like this, and actually we're also going to need to implement this, so you can see the warning like that. So fatal this, or you have to initialize the coder, right? So we're gonna do basically the same thing. We say super.init, and not this one, we want the coder. We're gonna pass in the coder, and here we're gonna call our initial setup. We're gonna do the same thing for the init like this. All right. So in our initial setup, what we're gonna do is we're gonna say layer dot shadow color, and this is going to be equal to UI color dot black dot CG color. All right, and the next thing we're going to do is the shadow offset. So to do that, we just say shadow or layer dot shadow offset like this, and this is going to be .0 because I just want it to, you know, be at the, well, no particular angle. All right, so next we're going to have layer dot radius, because we want our shadow to sort of have like a curve, you know what I'm saying? So this is going to be, we can use 10, I guess. Yep, 10 seems pretty good. And next we're gonna have a layer dot shadow opacity like that. I can just use 0.1. I don't want it to be too dark, just something light and, you know, like that. Then another thing I'm going to do over here is I want all of my card views to have a default corner radius, right? So what I'm going to do is just say corner radius, because this is a view already, and this is going to be 10. Make sense? Yep, I think this is pretty good. So now we have our card view, right? So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to use the card view in our CollectionViewCell. and let's see if this actually makes significant difference. So I'm going to go over to the class, and this is going to be CardView, right? So let's go ahead and run this, and let's see if we have our shadow over here. So we actually can't see any difference, and the reason is, if you look over here, this view has zero constraint to all the corners, right? So it's actually blocking out the shadow. The shadow is basically clipped off. So this is what I mean. If you click over here, you're gonna see in our attributes that we have clips to bounds, right? So I'm just gonna check that out. Hopefully the design, the shadow goes away. So an alternative we can do, of course, is to add like a 10, add some what's it called? Add some paddings so that the shadow has space to breathe. All right, but let's actually go this route. Okay, now things are looking much better. So now we can see that the shadow is actually here, but we're gonna go ahead and add some spacing to this guy over here. All right, and yeah, then if you look over here, you can see again that the cell is like at the extreme end. So what we want to do is want the initial position to be like somewhere right here. All right, then if you look at the bottom, you can see that the shadow also is clipped off, right? So we're gonna fix those right now. So we're gonna head back to our main.storyboard, and the first thing we're gonna do is for our collection view, and actually you need to be very careful whenever you are removing the clips to bounds, right? So it just means that design spills out of the container of that particular view. All right, so if you don't want that, then you got to be careful. Right, so yes, we're gonna remove that over here. Then we're gonna go into this guy, I don't know what it's called, size inspector. Awesome. And we're gonna add a spacing, minimum spacing for these cells, and we're gonna make this 10. I believe that is the correct one. We're gonna see that shortly. And then the next thing we're gonna do is to add a section inset right here. For the left, I'm going to set this to 10, and for the right, I'm going to set this to 10 as well. So let's just have a feel, or let's see what it actually looks like. So all right, so first of all, this guy is starting out right here, which is, I guess, okay, and this guy looks pretty good as well, but we don't have the spacing, so I guess I probably set it at the wrong place. So let's see. So maybe not for cells. Let's set this for lines. Pardon the guesswork. Can't remember. It's very okay to do trial and error. So let's run that. Okay, so one more thing I'm gonna do over here is I'm gonna add a little bit more padding to this guy. So let's get back to, where are you at, my friend? This guy, we're gonna make the left about 20, I guess. Let's run this and see what we have. Alright, so I guess this looks pretty good. And you can see that the shadow actually goes past that collection view. So there's no sharp line, that's what I mean. So now we can scroll, and this guy is outside. So because we pushed it like this guy may also, we also need to work on this guy as well. So I'm going to make this one basically 2 times the size of the left. So this is going to be 2 times 2 is what? Did you just say 50, man? What you saying? So yeah, we're going to make this 40, and hopefully this should work very well. Awesome. So we have like equal spacing. This guy is 20, this guy is 40, whatever to the right. So yeah, this is it for our food category. But before we end this video, I just want to show you something very crazy. Hold on, you're gonna be surprised. So I'm gonna create or set the delegate and the data source for this guy as well, just so that you see the power of, or what the danger of forgetting to do this. So I'm just gonna set the delegate like that, and let's go ahead and run the app and see what we have. Okay, so can you guess why this happened? It's because it doesn't know what exactly this nib means. So we're gonna fix this in the next video, and I'm also gonna show you what I wanted to show you now. This is always time. Anyway, see you guys next time.